Welcome Bob Priddy as a class of 2018 inductee into the Missouri Broadcasters Association's Hall of Fame.
Please welcome Bob Priddy.
Thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. Terry Harper has told me I only have a few minutes to speak. And you're taking up all my time. The dean just passed me a lapel pin that says MU Journalism Alumni, and I'm very proud of that. I'm wearing tonight a lapel pin from Learfield Communications, the original Learfield lapel pin. I figured it's kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame. The players get to go in with the cap on their plaque with the cap that they want to have. So I'm wearing my original Learfield pin because it means so much. Clyde, thank you for that introduction. Clyde and I have, in fact, been good friends for 50 years. I hired Clyde after he was fired by the NBA. Clyde was hired by the NBA to do some reporting at the Capitol for the radio stations in Missouri on what we called a codophone in those days, which was a telephone that he would pick up and he would read something into it, then hang it up, and I could call, or anybody from call throughout the state of Missouri could call that telephone number, and we'd get a voicer for our afternoon newscasts. And Clyde insisted on doing more than the then head of the NBA wanted him to do. And when he refused to do less, he was fired. And I happened to have an opening for him, so I hired him, and we have been friends and cohorts, and I can't tell you how much he has meant to me over these years. So thank you very much for this recognition. But I know that there are many people, many of whom stood up a few minutes ago, who have lifted me to this platform by their work and their cooperation, their support, and their inspiration. And I'm also honored that I'm joining a list of others who have previously been put in the Hall of Fame. Dr. Edward Lambert was my first broadcast professor at the University of Missouri. And Malin Aldridge of KFRU was my first general manager, a young man who let many young people find out if they really wanted to be in this business by working at the radio station there. And Ray Rouse, who put me on the air for my first newscast in February of 1963. And of course, Clyde, who's been such a good friend for a long time. But these are people who taught me and who exemplified for me the very concept that radio should be of a community, not just in a community. They taught me these things, and I continue to carry those thoughts and ideas and ideals through my life. They have taught me that the words in the old phrase, public interest, convenience, and necessity, especially the last word, are vitally important and should be important to radio. They speak of an obligation beyond ourselves and our bottom lines. I want to single out one person in my life who's been vitally important, and that's my wife, Nancy, who's at the table here. She sometimes used to deliver dinners to me in a covered plate to the Capitol building when our days were more like 5 to 9 instead of 9 to 5. And it was quite often that she did that, and she now, instead of having me gone 70 or 80 hours a week, she now is learning the perils of having me there for lunch every day. At the Missouri Net, we had an aggressive newsroom that could not be intimidated and could not be bought or persuaded to ignore issues and people who deserved the spotlight. We were protected by Clyde Lear, the founder of our company, in more ways than one, himself a journalist who understood the importance of a free, unafraid press and the necessity to a free society of having that free, unafraid press, especially in the local and regional areas. Long ago, I first heard the words of Walter Williams, the founder of the School of Journalism, the first one in the country, who wrote, "I believe in the profession of journalism. I believe that the public journal is a public trust, and that all connected with it are, to the full measure of their responsibility, trustees for the public. that acceptance of a lesser service than the public service is a betrayal of that trust. I had the Journalist's Creed translated into the Romanian and Polish languages when I was sent to those countries to teach them how to have independent radio news operations after the fall of the Iron Curtain. And I distributed those words to the young, idealistic journalists who were then starting to emerge in those now free countries. As the first of what I hope will be many news directors to join the Hall of Fame here, it seems appropriate to make a few points tonight. In my half-century plus as a reporter, as a journalist first and a broadcast journalist second, I have never, ever, not once, broadcast fake news. The Missouri Net has never done fake news. It does not do fake news now. And the hundreds of reporters from the dozens of radio stations throughout Missouri who contributed stories to the Missouri Net never did any fake news for us either. Those who accuse people like me of doing fake news are accusing people like me of being liars. I don't lie. People like me don't lie. The Missouri Net doesn't lie. And our affiliate news people who fed us thousands of stories never lied. And when it comes to integrity, I will stack the news people I have worked with against the claimed integrity of those who are seeking or holding positions of power any day of the week. Now, it might seem that those who accuse people in my profession of doing fake news are only painting the national news organizations with that brush. But there is a splatter that taints all journalists, and I do not believe it is unintentional. My good friend Dan Shelley, you saw him in the picture with me and George Clooney there. Dan has gone from sending us news stories from KTTS in Springfield to being the executive director of the Radio Television Digital News Association. In today's divisive, vitriolic environment, he wrote recently, journalists should watch their backs but not back down. The only antidote to attacks on responsible journalism is more and better journalism. So let me put this very plainly. Wherever in our industry there is fake news, it is not likely to be in newsrooms that are free from political, economic, and corporate pressure. But to the misfortune of our communities, to our state, and to our nation, there have been too many places where the independent, local news voice has been reduced to insignificance or has been turned into a corporate mouthpiece. It might be argued that our industry is complicit in undermining the work of the people in our newsrooms because of the constant and badly imbalanced drumbeat of division and derision and denigration and distrust on our airwaves that convinces our listeners and our viewers that they are victims of government, not partners in it. In effect, we splatter ourselves. And in doing so, we do a disservice to the people of integrity, the reporters and the editors and the news directors and the photojournalists in whose programs candidates and special interests might buy time, but should never, ever buy content. This is a time for all of us to find the courage to build or to rebuild public trust in ourselves by taking more seriously our roles as trustees for the public and being more of a necessity than the furniture store in the next block or the clothing store at the mall or the yogurt place around the corner. It is time for less manipulative talk, a time for commitment to more significant news that helps our public think for itself. So I'm grateful tonight to the Missouri broadcasters for this recognition of what I have been and what I still am, a committed journalist, and the hopes that I have that our industry can be more of a necessity for more people than the furniture store down the street. It's a great honor to be in company with those many people for whom I have such high regard in the Hall of Fame, and I thank you very much for this recognition tonight.
We're going to take a picture in the middle.